London, 1888.
The capital of the most powerful empire the world has ever known. An empire that controls a quarter of the Earth's surface. But power casts long shadows. Just miles away, another London exists. Whitechapel. 900,000 souls packed into a single square mile. Poverty here isn't hidden. It's ignored. And in these streets, something has begun to hunt. The city calls it terror. Terror. But terror is only a symptom. This is not just the story of Jack the Ripper. It's the story of an empire built on blood, and the women's society had already condemned to die. Die. History remembers a monster. But it forgets the women he erased. Mary Ann Nichols, 43 years old, homeless. On the night she died, she said she'd earned her bed money 3 times and lost it 3 times to gin. Annie Chapman, 47.
Tuberculosis eating away her lungs. Selling flowers and matches to survive.
Those were her last words. Elizabeth Stride, 44. A Swedish immigrant.
Cleaning rooms for pennies.
Catherine Edoes, 46.
Found drunk in a jail cell, released at 1 a.m.
That was goodbye.
Mary Jane Kelly, 25. The youngest. These women were not just victims of a killer. That's cross. They were victims of a system that had already sentenced them to die. The Ripper didn't begin their suffering. He only ended it. While the Ripper stalked Whitechapel, Britain celebrated its golden age. In 1887, Queen Victoria marked 50 years on the throne. An empire at its peak, proud, confident, unquestioned. The British Museum displayed treasures taken from every corner of the world.
But prosperity came at a cost.
Opium forced onto China to balance Britain's trade.
Rubber extracted by mutilated Congolese workers. Indian laborers starving in famines while their grain fed English cities.
And in Whitechapel, the empire's capital showed its true face. 62% of children here died before the age of 5. Families of 8 shared a single room. A woman could work 16 hours a day, slowly dying from phosphorus poisoning, and still earn less than the cost of food. When women turned to prostitution, society blamed them. But the numbers tell a different story. Because no other work could keep them alive. By the autumn of 1888, Whitechapel stops sleeping.
Fear moves faster than rumor.
August 31st, 3:40 in the morning.
Mary Ann Nichols is found on Bucky's Row.
Her throat cut so deeply her head is nearly severed. Her abdomen mutilated. Annie Chapman, found behind a house on Hanbury Street. The killer removes her uterus and part of her bladder. The examining doctor writes, obviously the work of an expert.
September 30th, the night they called the double event.
Elizabeth Stride, 1 a.m. Her throat cut, but her body untouched. He was likely interrupted. "45 minutes later, Catherine Eddowes. This time, he has time. He leaves a message in chalk. It is erased before it can be photographed.
November 9th. Mary Jane Kelly. The scene is so horrific, even hardened officers vomit. The killer spent hours. And then, silence.
The Ripper vanishes, but the deaths don't stop.
They just stopped being news.
In the same autumn of 1888.
While newspapers screamed about the Ripper,
1,300 people died in Whitechapel from what were called natural causes.
tuberculosis, cholera, starvation, exposure.
Deaths that came quietly and caused no outrage. The murders shocked society, not because women died, because of how they died. A woman starving slowly in a workhouse was expected.
A woman murdered violently was spectacle.
George Bagster Phillips earned more for one autopsy
than Annie Chapman earned in the entire month before she died.
The investigation cost over £30,000.
Meanwhile, Whitechapel's only hospital turned patients away. Every single day. This is the blood on the Empire's quiet streets.
Not the violence that sells newspapers.
The violence that kills slowly, invisibly, with society's full approval.
For more than 130 years, over 200 suspects have been named.
A failed barrister who drowned himself in the Thames. A Polish immigrant committed to an asylum.
An American quack doctor.
Even Queen Victoria's own grandson.
Each theory more elaborate than the last.
In 2014, DNA analysis pointed to Aaron Kosminski. The evidence was contested, the shawl unverified, the DNA contaminated. And still, the search continues. But here is the truth most Ripper hunters miss. The killer's identity doesn't matter.
What matters is why society cared about 5 murders,
while ignoring thousands of deaths happening at the same time.
The murders arrived at the perfect moment for Victorian media.
The Education Act had created a newly literate working class, hungry for news.
Circulation exploded.
fear became a commodity. One paper multiplied its print run several times over. The Ripper was profitable. Murder became entertainment, consumed by the thousands.
Letters claiming to be from the killer flooded newsrooms and police stations. One letter, likely a hoax, gave the killer a name.
And the name stuck.
The women were called unfortunates, a word that pitied them and blamed them.
Reformers descended on Whitechapel, offering prayers and lectures.
They offered moral guidance, but not living wages, not housing, not justice. The empire that ignored Whitechapel's dying poor would itself die slowly over the next century. Two world wars drained its blood, toot, and its wealth. Colonies began to break free. The sun finally set on the empire that claimed it never would.
Whitechapel today is almost unrecognizable. The slums are gone.
Coffee shops and galleries now stand where desperation once lived.
Property prices here have risen 500% since 2000.
But economic violence didn't disappear.
It changed form. Millions still live in poverty. Children still go hungry. The mechanisms evolve, but the truth remains.
Societies still decide which deaths matter and which can be quietly ignored.
These women were more than the way they died.
Mary Ann Nichols had 5 children. She loved them, but couldn't feed them. She died trying to earn 4 pence for a bed. Annie Chapman wrote to her son 2 weeks before she died. She talked about the weather. She didn't mention that she was starving. Elizabeth Stride survived a shipwreck that killed her husband.
She rebuilt her life in a foreign country. She learned a new language. She endured. Catherine Edowes was kind. Witnesses remembered her singing. Her partner wept openly at her inquest. Mary Jane Kelly sang Irish songs.
She was 25 years old. She wanted to go home, but couldn't afford the fare. These women were not their deaths.
They were not headlines or statistics.
They were human beings navigating a system designed to break them.
A system that declared their lives worthless and then acted surprised when someone treated them that way. The Whitechapel murders remain officially unsolved. The killer's name is lost to history.
But perhaps we've been asking the wrong question. The mystery isn't who killed these women.
The mystery is why a society created conditions where their deaths were inevitable. Jack the Ripper haunts us because he's evil we can understand. A monster in the fog. A devil with a blade.
But the greater evil was quieter. It wore respectable clothes. It wrote laws. It called suffering progress.
On the Empire's quiet streets, blood flowed in the darkness.
Some of it made headlines. Most of it didn't. And in the shadows of our own gleaming cities, on our own quiet streets, we must ask, whose blood are we choosing not to see?